What's going on, Disney fans? It is Disney Dan here with another episode of Distory, a Disney history lesson. In this episode, we'll be getting a little nutty with two of the most famous chipmunks in the entire world, Chip and Dale, as we take a look back at the evolution of their costumes both in and out of Disney parks. This hilarious duo of cartoon critters made their screen debut in 1943 in the super funny short Private Pluto, where they terrorized Mickey's best friend relentlessly. But the pair wouldn't be given officially distinct personalities until their own feature in 1947, titled Chip and Dale with Donald Duck, where, you guessed it, they terrorized Donald into a complete tizzy. These two pesky critters would soon become Disney legends and fan favorites for decades to come. Like most of the classic Disney costumes, Chip and Dale first appeared in the featured Disney portions of the Ice Capades in the early 1950s. While they weren't original cast members to the first 1949 show, they were added in the early 50s as the Disney cast of characters continued to grow with each new Ice Capades production. The Chipmunks were joined on the ice by their mutual love interest Clarice, the lady chipmunk the two would often pine after in their various cartoon shorts. Clarice, Chip, and Dale were nearly identical in terms of the construction of their costumes, with the only noticeable difference being their eye focus and some small costume pieces for Clarice, including a colorful apron and hat. For her eye focus, Clarice would shyly peer to the side, while Chip's eyes were looking forward, and Dale's eyes, of course, were crossed. Each of the costumes featured a large ringed collar off the head with matching fur to cover the neck transition, and a black and white signature stripe down the back. These costumes would eventually appear in Disneyland from opening day in 1955 and onward. The characters wouldn't change much after appearing in the park, other than Chip and Dale occasionally wearing gentlemen's hats and ties, and Clarice would wear a small bow and matching colorful collar. It was in the early 1960s that the Disney Parks team ditched the Ice Capades costumes in favor of their own original designs. These new costumes were exact clones of each other, offering no distinction between Chip or Dale, with Clarice no longer making appearances. These costumes were full of odd choices, not just because they were identical copies meant to represent two separate characters, but also because they continued to use the furry collar piece as a transition from the head to the body, but left it as a solid color instead of adding the accent stripe in the center to blend in with the chipmunk's front fur. This left the costumes looking like they were wearing some sort of bizarre clown collar and really detracted from the overall look. The costumes' heads got a major update, transitioning from the soft foam to a hard cast shell wrapped tightly in fur. This shell allowed for the faces to get more rounded, puffy chipmunk cheeks, along with more defined facial features. Just a side note relating to the collars seen in most versions of these chipmunks, after talking to a few of my cast member friends, we determined that these collars were left out intentionally to avoid the fur bunching up just under the neck, giving an odd look. Typically, costume characters like this will feature a fur collar around the neck that is usually tucked into the body of the costume to prevent any kids from peering up into the neck and seeing a human's head. Perhaps because of the design of the chipmunk's smaller heads, the fur would have bunched up and looked frumpy, causing them to keep the collar out. I'm not really sure. And if I'm wrong, please, leave me a comment below and I will happily add it to the description of the video for whatever reason, and maybe even make a separate video about it because it's just such a weird choice. I really don't understand it. I've really only seen one, maybe 1.5 photos where the chipmunk's collars are actually tucked in. So I don't really know why they did this. I really don't. In 1968, the characters received a major makeover just a few years prior to the opening of Florida's Disney World. The new design for the Chipmunks finally introduced unique head molds for the two characters, giving them each their own unique personalities and looks, making them much easier to tell apart. The head sculpts were completely redone, with larger, softer curves and rounded details. From the round, bright white eyes to a mix of hard rubber painted pieces, these new designs were much more cartoony in appearance than any other previous version. Dale was given a ton of unique features to help distinguish him from his less crazy brother, including thicker eyelids, a round, more chocolatey brown nose, and 2 separate teeth sticking out of both sides of his mouth. The designs stand out specifically in the history of Chip and Dale because of their massive size. Everything from their huge oversized heads to the height of the cast members inside the costumes, these chipmunks were just absolutely massive. They towered over most of the other characters, including Mickey Mouse, which is a bit uncharacteristic considering they were the smallest animated members of the Mickey and Friends lineup. Thankfully, for the 10th anniversary of the Magic Kingdom, Chip and Dale, much like the rest of the costume character cast, got a major makeover. The new design put the pair more in line in terms of size and scale with most of the other characters seen in the park. The old large heads were redesigned with a brand new shape and size. Now Chip and Dale's cheeks were bulging out of the sides of a much smaller head, giving a more sharper, distinct transition just below the eyes. Dale continued to sport his small black nose, and Chip his larger rounded brown one, but scaled down significantly and moved to the fur line instead of the front of the snout. Chip also got minor tweaks to his eyes, with the larger eyelids previously seen made of fur replaced by hard rubber painted lids that matched the skin tone of his snout. The fur used for these suits was a bit more shiny compared to the previous matte finish fleece, and the characters' hips received a bit more padding and were lifted to give the smaller feet a bit more visibility. This is also when the park transitioned from the old 5-finger traditional glove to the new 4-fingered character glove. Finally, the most unsightly part of the previous Chip and Dale costumes was removed. The large, hanging furry collars that were previously seen under each version of the Chipmunks' heads were finally cut from the design, giving the characters a much cleaner look. While we typically don't highlight costume variants or different outfits in this series, it wouldn't be right for us not to touch on the iconic 1989 TV series Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers, which gave these two characters some new threads to wear in the park. For a short time during the height of the series' popularity, Chip and Dale would sport their Rescue Ranger outfits for character meet and greets and in-park shows. Chip would get his leather bomber jacket and Indiana Jones hat, while Dale would wear his bright orange Hawaiian shirt. Everyone, of course, loves this animated series, including me, and we will probably do a special video just highlighting the amazing costumes that came from it, so let us know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see, and we will definitely put it together. The modern versions of Chip and Dale from 1981 went high-tech in the late 2000s as they were upgraded into fully articulated versions for the live stage shows in the parks. While for the most part these costumes were nearly identical to the non-articulated meet and greet ones, there are a few minor differences. First, much like every character that's been articulated, the sculpts of the heads were sized up and altered just a bit to make room for the animatronics inside. Totally understandable. I understand that one. Second, and a little bit more confusing to me, a very different kind of fur was used on the characters with a thicker pile, making them appear kind of fuzzier and more staticky. Not sure why this decision was made. So far it only affects the articulated live stage versions of the characters and not of the meet and greet ones, and it doesn't look bad necessarily, I just don't know why they did it. But who knows, maybe you know and you can yell at me in the comments and tell me. So there you go. There's a look back at the cheeky history of the two Chipmunks and their costumes as they evolved over the past 60+ years, both in and out of Disney theme parks. From the years on skates to their years as Rescue Rangers, these Chipmunks have seen and done a lot. And I'm totally interested to hear which of these versions of the Chipmunks was your favorite, so let me know in the comments below. I know which one's my favorite, but I want to know which one's yours. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel for more great Disney history news, as well as visit us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Seriously, I love seeing you guys follow me and chat with me and send me messages and tweet at me and tag me and do all kinds of stuff. So please interact with me online. I want to hear from you guys. Let me know what other Disney history videos you want to see. And yeah, so follow me on social media. I can't wait to chat with you. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. You rock.